Thanos. When he enters Infinity War, the film takes a different turn. It shifts from heroes trying to save everything to exploring how defeat starts to seem unavoidable. He doesn't win because he fights harder. He simply wins because nothing in the universe is ready to stand against his will. His first real win sets the tone. He dismantles the Hulk with raw physical dominance, and with the kind of confidence that suggests he expected it to be real harder. That moment tells everyone watching exactly where the balance of power sits, and it never shifts back. From there, every victory builds momentum. He takes each Infinity Stone through calculated force, emotional pressure, and brutal necessity. He believes balance is something that must be enforced, even if it demands unbearable sacrifice. And he shoulders that decision with absolute composure rather than satisfaction. He breaks alliances, exploits hesitation, and with every confrontation, resistance starts to feel less heroic and more futile. Although characters fight harder, the results stay the same. Thanos keeps moving forward. The ultimate win arrives with one simple snap, and while the universe falls apart, Thanos sits down, wounded but with a sense of completeness. That's what makes his victory sting. He treats universe-ending decisions like administrative tasks, as if the outcome was always just another box to check. And in the end, his greatest power was never the gauntlet. It was the certainty that carried him through every step. We're placing Thanos at level 7. God complex because he didn't just defeat the heroes, he won every critical moment that mattered and lived with the result. John Doe wins without strength, speed, and without ever trying to escape. That is what makes him dangerous. He looks ordinary, almost forgettable, with a quiet voice, plain clothes, and eyes that feel empty rather than angry. From the first moment you understand his plan, the story stops being about catching a killer and becomes about realizing the ending has already been written. John Doe simply sees the world as morally diseased, and he believes punishment is not cruelty but correction. He is patient, disciplined, and calm in a most disturbing way because he has already accepted his own death as part of the design. That acceptance removes hesitation, and without hesitation, every move becomes precise, which makes him untouchable in ways weapons never could. Each murder follows a strict moral structure tied directly to one of the 7 deadly sins, and each victim becomes part of a larger lesson rather than an act of rage. Without any powers, strength, or force, he has an ability to manipulate human weakness, guilt, and pride. And that's what makes him more dangerous than almost any villain who ever lived. And honestly, the calm way he organizes his crimes feels less like violence and more like delivering a sermon on a strict schedule. And somehow that makes it worse. His final victory arrives in the desert, where even in handcuffs and facing death, he remains calm, fulfilled, and certain because the last sin is completed exactly as planned, and the hero is emotionally destroyed. We're placing John Doe at level 5, Tyrant of Ideology, because he proves that belief, once fully committed, can outlive the body and poison everyone left behind. But our next villain turns that collapse into something even more unsettling. Darth Vader doesn't win a war. He ends an era, and somehow makes it feel official. By the time Revenge of the Sith reaches its breaking point, the galaxy hasn't collapsed yet, but you can feel it leaning forward. When Vader is on screen, things don't explode immediately. Conversations shorten, hope gets quieter, and confidence starts feeling like a bad decision. This isn't a villain reacting to chaos, but chaos realizing it no longer has a say. What makes it even worse is that his victory starts long before the armor ever locks into place. Anakin Skywalker isn't dragged into darkness kicking and screaming. He's guided there patiently. Under Sith ideology, control replaces trust. Fear starts sounding reasonable, and emotion slowly becomes a liability. Palpatine doesn't push him across a line, but he removes the line entirely, then watches Anakin keep walking. And once that step is taken, the inner debate is over. Only focus remains and discipline sharpened into dominance. And that's exactly where Order 66 lands. Just one sentence delivered once and obeyed everywhere. But this is only the beginning of Vader's win. He doesn't celebrate or absorb. The quiet understanding that the galaxy now survives by adapting to him, whether it wants to or not. We're placing Darth Vader at level 6, harbinger of doom because his creation doesn't just defeat heroes, it teaches the galaxy how to live without freedom. Anton Chigurh doesn't win by proving he's unstoppable, And that's exactly what makes him terrifying. He wins because nothing ever truly stops him. From the moment he appears, something feels off, like the rules of normal behavior no longer apply. His posture is stiff, almost mechanical, and his movements lack urgency or emotion, which immediately tells you this isn't a man reacting to the world. It's something moving through it. What makes it even worse is how he understands choice. Anton Chigurh believes free will is an illusion, and because of that belief, he removes himself emotionally from every decision he makes. The coin flip isn't about fairness or chance. It's about distancing himself from responsibility while forcing others to confront how fragile their lives really are. And that's exactly where the fear settles in, because survival suddenly depends on randomness, not morality. But this is only part of the damage. Chigurh doesn't see himself as cruel or angry. He behaves like someone completing a task that was always meant to happen. No pleasure or hesitation, just follow through. And that mindset separates him from most villains because he isn't trying to win, he's executing inevitability. Every killing reinforces that control. His victories are quiet and relentless. He hunts without urgency, kills without anger, and most importantly, moves on without reflection. And over time, that emotional emptiness becomes overwhelming. And that's when it leads to Carla Jean, where his dominance peaks not through action, but through absence. And that's when you realize how complete his win is. Chigurh walks away, injured but alive. No punishment follows. No justice catches up. He escapes not because he earned it, but because the world simply fails to correct him. And that realization lingers. We're placing Anton Chigurh at level 4, Shadow of Humanity, because he doesn't feel like a villain in the traditional sense. He feels like what's left behind when humanity quietly steps out of the room. The most dangerous thing the Joker ever does is make Gotham answer a simple question. How far will you go when fear gets loud? Yes, he doesn't arrive like a conqueror or a king. He drifts into the city looking unfinished, clothes hanging loose, smile stretched too wide, whereas his eyes are locked on reactions instead of outcomes. But the danger isn't what he does first, but how quickly the city starts responding to him. What truly separates him from other villains is intent, because the Joker understands that morality only survives when fear is absent, and every plan he sets in motion is designed to apply pressure until someone breaks. Fairies, hostages, and ticking timelines aren't random acts of chaos. They are controlled experiments carefully structured to prove that fear doesn't reveal heroes, it turns everyone into a liar. And his greatest win arrives through Harvey Dent. Gotham's symbol of hope doesn't fall because he's weak, but because he's human. Loss, grief, and manipulation stack until the Joker's philosophy becomes reality. When Dent breaks, the Joker doesn't celebrate loudly, because celebration would miss the point. He simply watches, satisfied, knowing the experiment worked, and the proof now stands undeniable. In the end, Gotham survives, but only by choosing a lie over the truth. Batman carries the blame, Dent becomes a symbol, and the city keeps standing on damaged morals. The Joker disappears from the streets, but his idea stays behind. We're placing Joker at level 5, Tyrant of Ideology, because he doesn't rule Gotham or destroy it outright. He reshapes what the city believes about itself. Ozymandias. Ozymandias doesn't argue about saving the world, he calculates it. In his mind, morality isn't about intention or innocence, it's about outcomes. And if millions have to die so billions can survive, then that isn't tragedy, it's efficient. He believes the world needs to be unified by fear, because peace built on trust always collapses, while peace built on terror tends to last. And that's exactly where his ideology becomes dangerous. Ozymandias sees humanity as predictable, emotional, and incapable of long-term survival without intervention. So he removes emotion from the equation entirely. In his view, hesitation is the real enemy, because hesitation delays action, and delay leads to extinction. Honestly, he treats morality the way an engineer treats faulty parts: acknowledged, then replaced. His defining victory proves that belief right. There is no final fight to stop him, because by the time anyone confronts him, the plan is already complete. The catastrophe has already happened. Millions are already dead, and the world is already united by shared fear. And in that moment, stopping him becomes meaningless, because undoing his work would guarantee humanity's end. And yes, the way he explains mass death like a completed business proposal somehow makes it worse. Calculated peace settles in, and what comes next proves that the most terrifying villains don't conquer, they conclude. We're placing Ozymandias at level 4, Shadow of Humanity, because he didn't overpower the world. He quietly stripped it of choice and forced it to survive under his logic. Emperor Palpatine seems hunched, quiet, almost harmless at a glance, and that misjudgment is exactly how his ideology works. Palpatine doesn't believe power should be obvious. In his view, visible strength invites resistance, but subtle control rewrites reality without a fight. Sith ideology for him is not about rage or domination in the moment. It's about permanence. A simple formula where fear creates order, order creates stability, and eventually stability keeps power alive long after leaders, armies, and empires fall. That belief shapes everything he builds. What makes it even worse is how patiently he applies it. Palpatine doesn't seize control in one dramatic move. He stretches it across years. People don't feel conquered. They feel guided. And that's exactly where his victory takes root. When obedience feels like choice, his defining win isn't survival in Return of the Jedi. It's a legacy. Even when Palpatine dies, the damage doesn't reverse. Empires rise and fall, names change, banners burn, but the structure he designed keeps pulling the galaxy back towards centralized control. That's the long game paying off. And this is only the beginning of his success. Palpatine doesn't need to rule forever. He needs fear to remain useful, power to remain centralized, and systems to keep functioning exactly as intended. His mastery of the dark side isn't about lightning or intimidation. It's about designing a future that behaves the way he taught it to. We're placing Emperor Palpatine at level 3, Architect of Chaos, because even in defeat, his ideology keeps working, slowly reshaping the galaxy through systems designed to survive without him. Amy Dunne. When she enters Gone Girl, the story quietly changes direction, and suddenly it's no longer about finding the truth, but about realizing how easily the truth can be replaced. She doesn't win by force, and seriously has not needed to. Because from the very beginning, she understands how people think, react, and choose what they want to believe. Her appearance is flawless and deliberate. Every smile is measured and every emotion carefully released only when it serves a purpose. She never looks rushed or unstable, and that control makes her unsettling. And what makes Amy Dunne truly disturbing isn't cruelty, it's clarity. She understands that perception is power and that fear, sympathy, and reputation can imprison someone more effectively than walls ever could. And at that point, her winning moment builds. She easily manipulates media narratives, bends law enforcement through evidence she carefully plants, and engineers her own disappearance so completely that guilt becomes inevitable. And when she returns, bloodied and broken on purpose, the truth no longer matters. The story locks. Escape disappears. The protagonist survives, but only inside the cage she designed. She always treats emotions like tools and relationships like strategies, which somehow makes the outcome feel colder. And yes, her power was never physical strength. It was her understanding of how badly people want to believe the right story. We're placing Amy Dunne at level 2, Pawn of Power, because she didn't just trap one man. She exploited belief and public perception to turn the system against itself. The T-800 advances with mechanical certainty. And with every step, you can feel resistance starting to lose meaning, because nothing about this threat reacts. It proceeds. There's no anger to provoke and no fear to exploit, just momentum. And that's exactly where Terminator 3 shifts the story. It stops pretending humanity still has a way out and quietly reveals something worse. The disaster was never waiting to be stopped. The machine doesn't win by adapting faster. It wins because it never stops. Skynet's ideology is brutally simple, and that simplicity is what makes it lethal. Efficiency comes before empathy. Outcomes matter more than morality. And humanity isn't judged or hated. It's calculated. And somehow, that lack of feeling makes each action feel even colder. What makes it even worse is how clean it all is. Every execution is procedural. Every second is accounted for. And yes, machines keeping better schedules than humans shouldn't be funny. But here, it's terrifying, because the countdown never pauses. The defining win arrives quietly. Judgment Day happens. Missiles launch, cities disappear, and the future war begins exactly as scheduled. Although humanity survives, but only in fragments, and that survival isn't victory, it's postponement. The world becomes aftermath, and Skynet keeps running because the end was never personal. It was a process being completed. We're placing Skynet at level 3, Architect of Chaos because it doesn't conquer the world. It executes a system designed to dismantle it piece by piece. This is what losing sounds like when no one notices it happening. The thing never rushes a moment, doesn't chase or make demand. It simply waits for people to doubt each other, and humans handle that part all on their own. The horror doesn't come from what it does, but from what it makes everyone else do instead. Its logic is brutally simple. It neither hates humans nor wants control. It simply wants to survive. And survival means copying whatever is nearby and passing well enough to be trusted. That's the trick. Not perfection, just enough to sit, speak, or even smile in the same room. And suddenly, every relationship becomes a risk assessment. What makes it worse is how fast fear takes over. Nobody knows who's real anymore, so everyone starts acting like they might be next. And yes, trust issues reaching Antarctic levels sounds funny, right up until teamwork collapses completely. That's where the win happens. The thing doesn't need to overpower anyone because paranoia handles the workload. We're placing the thing at level 1. Servant of corruption because it doesn't rule, plan, or dominate. It simply exposes how quickly survival loses meaning once trust collapses. At first, Kaiser Söze doesn't feel like a villain at all, and that's exactly the point. He registers as background noise, the kind of person your attention quietly drifts away from halfway through the conversation. A slight frame, a hunched posture, and nervous hands. Everything about him feels safely forgettable. Your attention drifts, your guard drops, and just like that, he's already winning. What makes Söze dangerous isn't flashy complexity or bravado. It's that his intelligence lives in layered deception, stitched together from half-truths, borrowed details, and just enough vulnerability to feel real. And the worst thing is, he never forces anyone to believe him. They do it themselves, filling in gaps because the story feels safe. His defining moment arrives without warning. No gunfire, no drama, just a walk away. The limp vanishes, the posture resets, and before anyone can react, the truth finally arrives. Late, quiet, and thoroughly useless. Watching the detective connect the dots feels human in the worst way, when confidence collapses and acceptance takes over because it has to. And that's Söze's real victory. He wins by never fully existing, but by the time the truth shows up, the villain is already gone, and justice is left staring at a space. We're placing Kaiser Söze at level 6, Harbinger of Doom, because he doesn't escape consequence. He erases the idea that consequences ever had a target. And while Söze wins by hiding the truth in plain sight, the next villain wins by revealing everything, once it's far too late. Frank Booth doesn't arrive so much as rupture the scene. 1 second, the room has air. The next, it feels contaminated. Heavy breathing, erratic posture, eyes jumping between rage and emptiness. Everything about him feels unstable. When he's present, people don't brace for conflict. They brace for survival. What actually makes Frank Booth dangerous isn't some grand intelligence or carefully thought out plan. It's how easily he turns fear into a daily routine. And here's the uncomfortable part. When chaos becomes routine, people stop pushing back. They start working around it. That's where Frank's power comes from. Not control, but no one is fighting it anymore. And yes, Frank's defining moments don't feel like big scenes. They feel like things that just happen. Violence erupts, hangs in the air, and then moves on without consequence. No one really stops him. No system arrives late to clean it up. And that absence matters. Also, a grim irony in how chaos starts to resemble control. He dominates through noise and fear, and people mistake that for power. It would almost be entertaining if it weren't so disturbingly effective. And when it's over, order never fully returns. The world keeps moving, but something stays broken. We're placing Frank Booth at level 4, Shadow of Humanity because he doesn't rule systems. He rots them quietly. So, out of all these villains, which one actually got under your skin the most? Drop your pick in the comments. I'll be reading every single one. And if you made it this far, you already know what comes next. Hit like, subscribe, and share this with that one friend who insists their favorite villain isn't that bad. I'll see you in the next breakdown, and trust me, the villains only get darker from here.